Okay, so happy Friday, happy Valentine's Day. I am trying to be consistent, and so I wanted to make sure that I came back and followed up with story time for the auction that I went to last week. So here's the deal, right? I am in the process of trying to find my first real estate deal for 2025. The goal is to try and do like 4 or 5 fix and flips this year. And so that's what led me to going to the real estate auction last week. Now, there are all types of auctions that happen when it comes to real estate. The auction that I went to happened to be taking place on the steps of the courthouse, literally on the steps of the courthouse. Okay. So we are literally right outside the front doors of the courthouse. And there was an auctioneer there. And then there was someone who represented the trustee for the property that was being auctioned off. Crazy thing is, you have to really do like your due diligence up front before you actually show up to these auctions, because you can't just go there and be like, hey, I want to, bid on the house, I'm interested and stuff like that. So prior to the auction actually happening last week, what I did was I pulled up information. There's information available on public records. There's information that was provided in the auction details for the property. But then I also did a drive-by on the property. I wanted to see what it looked like on the exterior, because most of the time when you're buying a property from the auction, it's being bought sight unseen. And what that means is you don't get to inspect the interior of the property before you actually place a bid on it. So you kind of got to go with what you know and hope for the best, because what you don't want to do is buy the property, win the property at the auction, and when you get it, go inside and it ain't no walls, ain't no ceiling, you know what I'm saying? It's no studs. You just bought a shell. But anyhow, that's probably was not going to be the case for this particular property. The crazy thing is, though, the property had a lot of interest, right? One of the things is sometimes you can see the counter on the websites and it'll show how many views a property has gotten. So I already knew that people were like interested. I just didn't know how many people was going to show up. And so when I got there, I was there early. Let me step back. Before I went, you have to find out what the bidding rules are. And for this particular auction, you had to bring 10% of what you were willing to pay for the property. So in this case, I already knew what my maximum amount was that I was going to spend on this particular property. So I had to go to the bank and get a cashier's check, because I couldn't walk around with thousands of dollars in cash. They was not going to be taking it. So I went and got a cashier's check and then had it made payable to the law firm that was representing this particular property. Once I did that, when I got to the auction, they will basically register you. And that's basically saying they're registering each of the parties that plan on bidding. So when I first got there, there was only one person there, right? So I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, I might have me a good chance, right? So then another person came, and then another. And then literally like 5 minutes before the auction started, there were 15 freaking people there to bid on this particular house. I was two through. So I'm like, all right, bet. Well, let's see what happens, right? Because, everything's an experience. And so I went on ahead and, stayed the course of the auction. And the funny thing about it, this particular piece of property needed a lot of work from what I could tell on the outside. And then the fact of the matter is, the age of the property led me to believe that it was probably not updated on the inside. So I had to take all of that into account, right? To come up with what my rehab budget might be. Now, when you're buying a property sight unseen, your rehab budget is really important, because you want to make sure that you're going to be able to have enough money to buy it, enough money to rehab it, and enough money to put it on the market to sell it to somebody, if that's your end goal. That was my end goal. So long story short, I went on ahead and had decided in my mind what was the maximum amount I was willing to pay, knowing that I was going to have to put some money up to actually fix the property once I got it. So they opened the bid at 134,000. I was super excited because I was like, okay, all right, your girl might got a chance. And so they opened it at 134,000. The first bid out the door, 140. Why? Why couldn't you just go with 134, sir? Why you had to jump out there with the 140? Anyway, so now the bidding is at 140. The auctioneer had said that he was going to do $1,000 increments, right? Which that again was going to also be cool, right? But no, people get out there, their egos is big. And so essentially the one person did 140, the next person did 145. They got to 150. So I put my little finger up 150. He was like 150 to the lady in the front, i.e. me. And so it was like 150. Then next thing you know, 150, 155, 160. Like, so now we're going up, 5, right? So I'm like, damn. So then it got to like 180. So I'm like, I really do want this property, right? So I'm like, all right, 180, right? So anyway, after 180, I was like, my max on this purchase was going to be 190. After that, my profit margins were going to go really, really down. And so it was not going to be worth it to me to buy it anymore. Let me tell you something. Them men out there was having a whole pissing match. They kept going up, going up, going up. And then finally, the winning bid was $236,000. For what? Sir, the house is not even going to be worth it like that. I mean, maybe if you are going to buy it, do all the work yourself, and you're going to maybe hold on to the property, because at this point, sir, there's no equity there anymore, right? That property was essentially going to be able to be sold retail market for probably around 250. 236 to 250. It don't take a rocket scientist. That was only $14,000 to work with. The amount of work that needed to be done to that house was easily going to be more than $14,000. I'm good on that. So you have your property at 236, sir. And best wishes to you. Anyway, so no, they don't keep your checks that you put down as the deposit. So my little 10% that I had with me for what I was willing to max bid, I took back home with me to deposit back into my bank account. And the great thing about it is now I was able to see the dynamics of how, a future auction might look like. You know what I'm saying? So when I saw the counter on the website was in the thousands, I already knew there was going to be a lot of people interested. However, didn't know how many people was going to show up. So in my head, I'm like, okay, so you got that many people showed up for a property that showed over, 1,300 views. And then on top of that, you got to remember, some people are bidding because they want to buy and hold it. Some people are bidding because they want to actually live in it. And then there's other people who are bidding for corporations. Listen, their money is real long, okay? My little thousands ain't even gonna cut it compared to a corporation who has millions of dollars to bid on these properties, right? What y'all gotta understand is that a lot of these corporations are bidding on these properties and they are getting them, flipping them real quick, and either turning them into rental homes or they're putting them back on the market at a, higher price, sometimes overinflated, but that's not my goal, right? My goal is to create affordable housing. Obviously I can't do it for free, so I do need to make a profit, but anyway, outside of the 15 people who were bidding on this particular property, there were only 3 women, including myself. And I was the only Black person there, which was also interesting. So only Black woman, only Black person, and one of 3 females. Listen, the game is real. And so you have to know what you're up against in terms of going out there. But you also don't want to be forced into doing something that you don't want to do. You can easily get caught up in the bidding process because your blood is pumping, it's exciting and everything like that. But real talk, listen, ain't nobody paying, like, there was no reason to pay $236 for that house. Like, it really was a pissing match between this one dude and the other dude. And I mean, may the best man win. And I can't wait to drive by it in a couple of weeks, or maybe a couple of months to see what actually happens. But real talk, sometimes these people buy these houses and they don't really do no work. And they just throw people in there as a rental tenant and be like, all right, go for what you know. That's not what I'm trying to do. So anyway, that's story time on the auction.